Hi, my name is Patrick Fingler, and in this tech tip video I'm going to show you how to dynamically generate reports from Survey123. Let's dive in. Alright, so here you can see I've launched Survey123 on my mobile device. I've just created a really simple survey to perform a work order. So I'm going to go ahead and click collect. The survey is going to retrieve my geolocation. I can enter my name as Patrick Fingler, specify the level of priority. We'll say there's low priority. I've got some work order templates that I can use. I'm going to go ahead and select maintain tree, and maybe we'll say needs to be trimmed. And let's continue the survey, and let's upload an image. So I'm going to go ahead and take a photo. And I'm just going to take a photo of my laptop here. And pretty happy with that. So let's submit this survey. So what we've implemented is now when you send the survey and you have internet connectivity, we'll then be able to generate a report. So in just a few moments, you'll see the report gets generated, and it actually sends an email to the user who created the report. Or sorry, who submitted the survey. So we'll just give it a few more seconds and I should get an email soon. All right, so here we can see I've got a email report. Let's open it up. And here you can see if we zoom in, we can see there's my attachment. We've also got a QR code as well. I'm gonna also just launch it as well on my laptop so you can see it. So here you can see there's also a QR code there. So let's go ahead and scan that QR code. And what's nice is in these reports, you can also include QR codes as well. So what this is going to do is it's going to open up our Geocortex mobile application, and it's going to highlight the work order that we just created. This is referencing an ArcGIS web map. And here you can see there's my comments saying it needed to be trimmed, and the attachment got included as well. So I'm gonna just stop sharing my phone and close my connection. And let's kind of review this again, this particular report. So here you can see very, very basic report that I've configured here, which essentially gets the some of the attributes that I entered with it from Survey123. So my name, the status, the template, and my comments. And then we dynamically created a QR code that will launch another third-party application. And here we've included some attachments. So how do you essentially create this process using Geocortex technology? So the first step is in Survey123, on your survey, there's going to be this webhooks tab. So you're going to want to navigate to settings and go to webhooks. There you're going to click add webhook. I've already done this. So let's edit this. We can see the status is on, and essentially you have to direct or create a payload URL. So in order for you to perform this process, you need to have Geocortex workflow installed on premise. So it needs to be installed on one of your internal web servers. In this scenario, I've installed Geocortex workflow on this particular domain, so portal.geocortex.com, and it's authenticated with my ArcGIS Enterprise. I've shared my workflow with everyone, and here you can see this is the ID of my workflow. So you're essentially going to construct this payload URL. You're going to essentially get the domain of your server, geocortex/workflow/service /webhook/survey123, and then this is going to be the ID of your workflow. All of this is where you can determine when this webhook gets triggered, so when a new record is submitted or when an existing record is edited, and then also you can supply essentially all of this information can get passed to the workflow, and then you can decide to include that information in an email, or you could do a variety of different options or capabilities with it. So let's go to the underlying workflow. So here, let's open up the workflow. You're going to want to use this get workflow inputs activity. This is going to get all of these inputs from Survey123. And what I like to do for debugging purposes is I like to kind of write this to just a JSON file in a temporary directory on the workflow server. So you can actually see all of the different inputs that Survey123 is providing you with. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm just passing in, I'm using the get workflow inputs.inputs, and then Survey123 passes a body of JSON, essentially. So we're going to write that to a server. And what that looks like is once that's actually getting written, let me log into this machine. You can see here, I'm writing it to this directory, and it's just a JSON file. You can see it's actually been reloaded because we just ran it. And here you're going to see it's got my attachments and information on it. It's got, the inspector, my comments. So all of this information, the feature, the underlying attributes, the geometry, the IDs of your, and the names of your attachments, the token information, your username and email information for based on the user who's running it. All of this is information that you can use inside of your workflows. So in my scenario, the only things that I was grabbing was the object ID as well as the email of the user, but you could do a variety of different branching. If it's this particular user or they've assigned it to this particular field worker, then we're going to email it to that field worker or that group of field workers and so on. So this is really, really handy when you're wanting to debug your workflow. So let's go ahead and continue. So because that's just a JSON file, what you can do is you can parse that, and that'll turn it into like a JSON object rather than just string, so that you can start actually retrieving the values from that text document. So here I'm essentially I'm parsing that JSON, and then I'm getting the user info and the email from that. So again, if we go back here and open that up and scroll down to the bottom, there's a property here called user info, and then I'm getting the email of that user. And then similarly, I'm also getting the object ID of the feature. So I'm getting the feature, the result of the feature, and then the object ID, which I believe is somewhere near the top here. If we scroll up, there's results and object ID. And I believe that's contained within this feature object. So let's continue on. So once you have the object ID, I can then run a report. So I'm just going to generate a report based on that feature's object ID. This is going to be my report URL for Geocortex Reporting. I can then download that report. So here I'm essentially going to, this is so we can add it as an attachment to an email. So I'm just going to pass the output of this report to my web request, going to have it return a blob, and then I'm going to supply that content to this create email attachment activity. I'm specifying that it's a PDF. You could give it whatever file name that you want. And then here I'm using the send email activity to essentially dynamically send an email to whoever submitted the survey. And then here I can supply whatever information that I want, as well as any attachments that I want. And that's essentially all the logic used to dynamically generate these reports. Now in the back end, we're using the Geocortex Reporting Designer to build out these underlying report templates, which provides a really intuitive and easy interface for generating reports that, again, can be dynamically generated from Survey123, which you saw, but these reports can also be generated from Web App Builder or other ArcGIS or Geocortex applications. So I hope that was informative. That is essentially how you can dynamically generate reports from Survey123. Bye for now.